Just so you know, we are live.
Okay.
Hey, Henry.
Hello.
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 Hi.
Henry, we are recording.
I'm going to promote Nate Burgess to the panelist.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome.
Hi.
Wait till we get a quorum and a couple more things and we'll get started.
Sure.
Julian is in the waiting room. I'm not sure why, but Sarah said she'd be a few minutes late, and I haven't heard from Britt. Who else? Shoshana, I haven't heard from. Did Britt say she wasn't coming?
I don't think so.
No. Can't remember anymore. She might have. All right, so we can start taking minutes now. I mean, not minutes, hours, right? Hours and minutes, that's confusing. We record committee hours when we apply for a Tree-City USA, that goes into some of that. So I did probably about 8 this month. Bennett?
This month, I would say I did through 4.
Okay. Helen?
5.
Let's try to get a quorum here. Ah, somebody's in. Okay, here we go. Shoshana's. And Julian. Okay, good. Okay, I think we're at a quorum now. It's good. Okay, well, welcome everyone. While we're doing this, Julian, minutes for the month. Julian, minutes for the month?
I think Bennett took the minutes last.
No. Hours for the month. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I did that again twice.
Hi, sorry. I was hearing what you were saying and I was like, what?
Hours.
No problem. Hours, I would say probably 6 or 7.
Tell me a number.
7.
Thanks. Shoshana?
2.
Okay. All right, good. So I think Sarah will be here soon, and I don't think Britt's coming. We have a guest. We have Nate Burgess. But before we introduce him and start with that, let's just, we need someone to take minutes because Bennett's not here the whole meeting.
Sorry.
Ellen, can you do it?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I could, but go. That's fine.
Ellen,
Yeah.
I've started those minutes. Why don't I just keep going and then I'll send them to you over Gmail.
Okay.
Okay. You've done so much.
No, okay, that's fine.
Okay, well, welcome Nate Burgess with the Downtown Planning Group. I'll let you talk. Sarah's here.
Hello.
Yes. So, hi everyone. Hey Sarah. Around.
Hi, Nate.
Down. So yeah, I have a short presentation. I'm gonna screen share. And you let me know if you can see my screen, okay? Let's see.
There we go. We see it.
Okay, and then we'll see if can you still see the presentation?
Yep.
Great. So first off, I'm Nate Burgess. I'm a landscape architect at Dodson and Flinker. I'm also an Amherst resident, have been for a little over 10 years. And at Dodson and Flinker, we're working as consultants right now for the town of Amherst on the downtown design standards. And I know I've talked with Alan, and there are a few of you who have been involved in some of the events of that project, but I wanted to stop by to give you a brief update and ask a couple specific questions that I imagine you have thoughts about, and we wanted to get your input on our work. So this project is to develop a vision for downtown Amherst, and then have alongside that vision some design standards that help to implement that vision. And the design standards will relate to both streetscape, kind of within the public right-of-way, as well as standards for redevelopment of private property, in particular, the parts of private property that are against the street and have a big impact on the character of the street and kind of life of the streetscape. This is the study area for the project in orange and overlaps with the design review board jurisdiction. And we recognize that within that study area, there's a lot of variety in terms of building types and streetscape types, from sort of Victorian buildings to more residential areas, and some areas of newer development, kind of higher density mixed use buildings east of Kendrick Park. We're working on a vision with an advisory working group that's made of residents and some professionals and developers in the area that are giving us advice as we put together a draft vision based on an engagement process that we've been doing over the last year. That vision isn't fully cooked, but we're getting close. And we know for sure that the vision would be incorporate the ideas of downtown being accessible, comfortable, community-oriented, livable, prosperous, resilient, and welcoming. I mentioned that we've been doing some engagement activities. That includes some surveys. I don't know if any of you have participated, but they were up, and we got a good response to surveys on building and streetscape. These weren't really particularly scientific polls, but they were fairly simple surveys where we provided different images and asked people to rate whether they were appropriate or inappropriate on a scale for downtown. And we have some results from those, some takeaways. These are a couple images that people rated as being appropriate for furnishings and plantings in particular. They show a lot of life along the street, both plants and cafe spaces, and also show a fairly orderly, organized street sidewalk that has different functions kind of clearly marked where you're supposed to do those things in the sidewalk. Here's some sort of next highest rated furnishings and plantings photos, and then some that were deemed inappropriate in surveys, generally area or photos that showed kind of more utilitarian surfacing, more chaotic organization of elements within the sidewalks, heavy use of turf grass and small walking areas, or narrow walking area. We got some feedback on plants and tree pits. perhaps not surprisingly, people love flowers and plant and greenery, and so a lot of photos that had a lot of flower forward designs were popular. Interestingly, some of the photos that were deemed inappropriate covered the major treatment approaches for trees in the sidewalks. So tree surrounds made of rubber or suspended pavements, fire retention, likely partially because these photos were pointed at the ground and don't show any green in the photos. We imagine we're part of that. But there also were some comments that we collected through the surveys that suggest that part of people's reaction to these images was that there's concern about approaches that are too uniform in terms of pavement and that also don't provide sort of a buffer between the street and sidewalk. And particular image 17, someone said, hey, that's an image that seems like there's no real definition between pedestrian and street, and that it doesn't seem to be much going on, just pavement. I'll talk more about that later for a minute. So big takeaways from that were that people want to see a lot of for the scope of your work in this committee. People do want to see a lot of green downtown, trees and plantings. They seem like people we've interacted with have been mindful of budgets in town and are interested in simple approaches to the sidewalks, but that are lower maintenance, but also an interest in keeping some character, in particular kind of a traditional New England character to sidewalk materials and making sure that different zones within sidewalks are clear so that places where you might want to sit or have cafe space or have street trees have a sort of separation from areas that are clearly designated for movement and for wheelchairs to use and for people to walk on, etc. So some of those ideas from the surveys have been reinforced through various workshops that we've done. Those workshops had a smaller subset of people at the events, but we had some nice conversations, many of which reinforced some sort of themes that seem to be emerging from our discussions with the community. One of the big ones is basically that simpler is better across the board. Not a lot of interest in really complicated paver patterns or approaches to the streetscape that are really intricate and have lots of ins and outs, but rather a very legible distinction between a concrete probably or asphalt, but smooth throughway for wheelchairs in particular to be able to traverse easily and for people to be able to walk without tripping and understand where they're supposed to be going to and from in the sidewalk as being really critical. And then also where, particularly in certain areas of downtown that have a more traditional aesthetic character, having a furnishing and utility zone that has some brick or brick-like pavers consistent with some of the paving that is around the downtown area now. And a little bit of appetite to invest up front in streetscape improvements particularly if they lower maintenance costs in the long term. We also, as part of this project to satisfy a grant requirement, funding the project, we put together a draft public realm standards document last year, kind of prior and in parallel to the engagement process. This is sort of a table of contents for things in the public realm standards. Importantly, this was very much a draft to be reconsidered in light of the public engagement process. And so we're right now taking the step of trying to gather what we've learned from community engagement and then return to this document to see what still holds up and what areas are at odds with what we're hearing from the public. And then so I wanted to give you a little update in particular on some of the elements related to tree planting. So in this draft standards are really replacing 2001 streetscape guidelines that had a fairly big impact on the streetscape of Amherst. You can still see the traces of those standards, in particular the granite curbs planters around existing trees were an outcome of those standards. And you can still see the square planting beds for some of the street trees that were had tree grates at one point, or were that was the standard, were tree grates at that time. And then the existing trees of downtown, as I'm sure you're aware, are in a variety of different planting conditions, from sort of long, narrow planting beds to kind of lawn areas like near Share Coffee that have trees in them, to some of the newer developments have explored other materials like tree grates, circular tree grates at 11 East Pleasant Street in the bottom right corner. The draft public realm standards have an approach to tree planting, which is you can kind of see a flavor of here, which is basically a right tree for right location approach is how we're trying to develop the standard. So coming up with a list of tree species that are based on lists that you all have presumably worked on developing, the town has had, and some of the previous projects that we've worked on have included for street trees, but characterizing trees according to their size and tolerances, so that to help assist the folks that are evaluating redevelopment proposals and the town as they think about renovating the street, to think about good trees for good locations. We are, there are lots of options for tree surrounds, from mulch to planting beds with different types of plants, permeable rubber tree pits, suspended paver systems, bioretention plantings, bioretention areas. So those are all still, in our minds, somewhat fair game, though we have, gotten some feedback pushing towards one or the other, and would be curious about your thoughts on what is appropriate, whether there should be one standard in Amherst or a suite of things that are good, that we should have in the standards, that people could have as options. And then a big topic for the standards that I really wanted to draw your attention to and start you thinking about, if not getting feedback on tonight, would be soil volume. So for trees, there's been a consensus for a while that having soil volume is one of the most important things for the health of trees. And there are a lot of graphics floating around and charts similar to the one on the left here, which was a product of James Urban's work, who's done a lot on thinking about trees that show that the size of mature trees can achieve in the street are very much related to the amount of soil that's accessible for the roots for those trees. And so, for example, 1,000 cubic feet of soil is really what you need to ensure that a tree could reach 16-inch diameter at breast height, or a 29-foot diameter crown to the top of the tree, which would be, trees are usually 30 to 40 feet apart in the street. It's kind of a typical spacing. So to get a nice full canopy, you really need to be thinking about soil that's accessible by that tree in the order of 1,000 cubic feet for a nice healthy tree. So then that raises the question of, how do you make sure that, or help to improve the conditions for trees and get more soil for them to thrive in, and the investment that's required to make that happen. And so a big question for the standards are whether Amherst is interested and ready to commit to a required soil volume for different size trees, or recommended soil volume for different size trees, or recommended soil volume with incentives. And there are different ways we could approach that. But it's a big question, and really maybe the most important question for investment in the canopy in downtown is how much soil realistically is going to be put in for new trees. And so right now we've got 600 cubic feet for small trees and 1,000 cubic feet for larger trees in our draft standards, and recognize that that is a really big lift, and you know, is very much something that we wanted to start with what you know, a really robust requirement that would meet understanding of tree, you know, how to ensure tree health, but recognize that that may not be the right, that may be too aggressive for Amherst. So lots of people have collected, there are other municipalities in the US that have required soil volumes. I just pulled a few here from the Deep Root website, which manufactures different systems for adding soil volume. So you have to, you know, they do a lot of work to try to convince people to have, you know, required soil volumes in towns, and municipalities, and many of those have been in larger cities. So the language in the draft standards are modeled off of Washington, D.C., which has draft standards in there, or has required soil volumes in their green infrastructure standards, 600 cubic feet for small trees, 1,000 for medium, 1,500 for large trees. But there are also smaller communities in the US that do it. Emeryville, California, I think has 12,000 people in their town, and they have a required soil volume of 600 cubic feet for small trees, 1,200 cubic feet for large trees. Amherst is somewhere in between there. And so a real question is, you know, do we think that this is the right fit for Amherst to require soil volumes, or is it left as to the different projects to try to convince, you know, funders of private development, and for the town to convince, you know, like have on a case-by-case basis, try to encourage having more soil for trees. This is some of the language that's in the draft standards right now. It's a placeholder. And then this is just a quick cost comparison of, you know, a tree with a rubber tree surround or with seed at the top as compared to a tree with 900 cubic feet of soil and silvacells at the bottom, proportionally. You know, it's a considerably more investment to get soil that's outside of a given tree in the street. So for example, that 30, if you're gonna do 1,000 cubic feet in a 15-foot wide sidewalk, like some of the places near Brugger's or Miss Saigon, you're talking about 20 plus by 15-foot square of soil under the sidewalk in order to achieve at 3 foot deep in order to achieve that kind of soil volume. So I know that was quick and a lot, but you know, that is sort of a flavor of the kinds of things we've been thinking about. And then I just wanted to be in listening mode and just kind of present a couple questions for you all, and get some of your take on what your priorities are for street trees downtown. And in particular, if you have any thoughts or, you know, thoughts about how you might consider a discussion or participate in a decision about required soil volumes versus recommended or incentivized soil volumes per tree. So.
Has there been any research done on, you know, tree longevity if it has more soil? I mean, some of our trees are quite old in town and probably have very little actual
Right.
soil, but you know, is there some type of chart or
Yeah.
something?
I mean, I think it's generally understood that the reason why the tree size relates to the soil is that it's just generally good for tree health. So,
Oh, there, yeah.
you know, it's sort of across the board. Your trees are going to be healthier, they'll live longer, they'll be
Right.
bigger. But a lot of the research about soil volume is really focused on that kind of how big can a tree get relative to its
Mhm.
soil volume. And drives a lot of the conversation.
Yeah, I have a question. Alan, are you still on?
Yes.
I'm wondering, you know, what is the range of soil that we have in the trees we have now in the downtown trees? Like, is 1,000 a lot more than what we normally have, or?
Yeah, I mean, on North Common, where we renovated that, the new, structural soil areas are, they're on that scale of the, um, 1,200 cubic feet or so, whatever, of structural soils for the trees that we put in a new location. So, the other locations in town, it's very difficult to do it due to the amount of utilities we have in the sidewalk area. So, it's there to, put in that much structural soil in most of downtown, is extremely difficult to dig around everything that's underground. So that's what we run into in old towns. As far as new projects go, if they have the space on their property to do it, that's good. But again, most of them build almost up to the edge of the right of way. So we still are stuck with trying to work around, gas lines, multiple power lines, multiple communication cables, water, sewer, in those areas. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, so that's my question. You do these design standards, and then you have places where it's going to be impossible to have 1,000 cubic feet of volume, or, putting in that much is going to raise the price. So then we're not allowed to plant as many trees in town, or, how does that affect?
Right.
That's my big question.
Yep. And I don't think they're easy answers, but that's kind of the nature of the decision making is, there are some benchmarks for, kind of rules of thumb for urban foresters about suitable soil volumes for tree health. And, like the smaller, I think one rule of thumb is 400 cubic feet for a smallest tree and 600 cubic feet minimum for a medium tree. And then you get onto the, closer to 1,000 for a large tree. So it's this question of, how much teeth do you want the standards to have? I mean, there would sort of, in any case, there would probably be a provision saying, even in the green infrastructure standards in DC, they say, if it's impossible to do, then you obviously don't have to do it, but there's a process by which you can get a waiver from that requirement. And so, I could imagine a scenario where we required 600 cubic feet per tree, and then, right now the draft language says, if it's impossible, see the tree warden for exceptions, so that there is a standard, it has some teeth to it where you have to comply unless there's a reason why you can justify why it's impossible. So there is that sort of approach.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. Otherwise everyone's just going to not do anything, and it won't be necessarily cutting into the our budget, because these are like projects that other people will be doing, but these will be design standards for them. So I think it's like really important to have, like some sort of bare minimum, and maybe even have like, spots where it's like, okay, yeah, this is a small tree area, and maybe this is a large tree area, and have those design standards in play.
And
Brooks, you have your hand up?
I just want to just chime in on that. I think the town would also would follow the same standards. So if the town was to renovate, a section of sidewalk, say in front of Fresh Side, which is one of the oldest sections of sidewalk in town, that we would follow the same standards. I believe that would be the intent.
Yes,
Okay, Brooks,
good.
yeah.
And could we try and push for standards that have like more permeable surfaces.
A lot of, one of our thoughts about the overall streetscape would be to have furnishing and utility zone that either requires or encourages or has an allowed element that would have permeable pavers, and would have some portion of that furnishing utility zone be kind of a continuous tree trench or soil trench that has the ability for water to get in. That's it.
Okay, so I just wanted to put in my 2 cents that I think that I'm not satisfied with especially recent development downtown, and that tells me that we need stronger standards and we need some teeth to enforce them. So I would support the strongest standards we can get that will help us to have healthy trees and large trees even downtown.
Yes.
Yeah.
I second that.
Sarah?
I am in support of what Shoshona and Brooks have already articulated. I think having rigorous standards makes sense because if it's not a requirement, it will never be a priority. There's always going to be situations where it gets pared back. My fear is that if the regulations are too strict and then a developer might choose to not plant trees at all. So I'm wondering if there's a subset or like a fallback of standards where, like, okay, for exceptions, see the tree warden or shade tree committee, whoever it is. And then if there was another guiding document of like, okay, you can't do this ideal volume of soil, is there a minimum volume of soil? So Nate, you were saying like the 400, 600, 800, or is there a pared back absolute minimum version that we could approve in special circumstances if we had some guidelines for that, so that we can encourage people to plant trees even if that we come up to these situations or budget or whatever it is where it's not possible to do the idealized version, although the ideal version is what we have on the books because we want to promote that in the streetscape.
All right, yeah, Julian.
Yeah, thank you. I would generally agree with what was said previously. My question is, like, I totally think this is a great idea. The only downside I could see is it might make projects more expensive if the town was going to redo a sidewalk or something like that. But as for like private developments and stuff, I think that's completely appropriate. My question is, like, take a building like 1 East Pleasant Street, because it's the only example I can think of. They have trees in front of there. I highly doubt if a building, no matter where it is downtown, is built that close to the road, there would be room for this amount of soil. Is that correct or is that incorrect, Nate?
In a very narrow sidewalk, I mean, there's room, but not within a radius of a tree necessarily. So if it's very narrow, in order to achieve that soil volume, you'd have to go laterally a ways. There are also, in some cases, situations where, if it's a narrow sidewalk and you have a tree and there's like a lawn area nearby, you could connect to that soil volume. Doesn't have to be in a perfect square around the tree to be beneficial. It definitely is harder, and there are smaller sidewalk areas where that really do limit, the amount of volume you could put there. They also probably are places where you want smaller trees anyway, because if you don't have that much space before building facade, you don't really want a tree that is, plant a tree that has a really large canopy.
Yeah,
so
I appreciate it. Basically, I guess what I'm getting from this is that another advantage to, if we were to mandate this required soil volume, is that the buildings may be required to be pushed back enough that the trees that they plant actually have room to get sunlight and thrive and grow properly, rather than just sort of be pushed out by the building and not be very successful trees. So I think like that might be another use of this, depending on how it's worded, is to not only keep the trees healthy for a long period of time and give them room to grow in their roots, it would also give them more room to grow upwards and have like proper space where they can take up the street.
Thank you. Ellen, have you taken over on the notes? So I see Bennett's not here.
Nope.
So if you can start taking notes now, maybe he sent you the link, I don't know. And then I wanted to just say that maybe the standards have to have a minimum setback from the road so there's enough room for the trees. I mean, that would be probably the most important thing to me in the standards.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the standards, we have building standards and some private side standards that do include building setbacks and step backs, as a separate sort of category, but clearly, have implications for the amount of space that's available for trees as well.
All right. Are there other things you want to talk about, Nate, or do people have more comments about this part?
Yeah. Do you want to weigh in on kind of tree surrounds and those details? Do you have anything that you, as a committee, sort of really like or really don't like, or questions for me about options?
Did you navigate to that slide?
Sure. So there are kind of a couple slides that speak to it, but this is sort of a
Yeah, this is great.
palette of options. So,
Retention.
So in general, I like where the tree is part of a bigger natural area, so where that's possible, whether it's grass or flowers or, something like that. But where it can't be, I think you have to use a mix of things depending on the location and how much room there is and things.
Yeah.
I really like sort of actually the two less expensive ones, the native plantings and the rubber tree pits. It's neat to know that those are both inexpensive and both of them seem to be more accommodating to the tree and have more of a natural streetscape downtown that also would, I imagine, help with stormwater.
I guess one note on on native plantings, I love them. They are lower maintenance than turf grass sometimes, but it's different maintenance. And that's one thing that these, the dollar signs are really referring to upfront cost. And, I think with planting beds is that they do require upkeep to keep them alive. And so, it's something to consider. That's often why, like in Northampton, they've moved to the permeable rubber tree pit, tree surrounds most places. They're nice in terms of being able to walk on them. They also are very low maintenance and, allow moisture in, but they also are rubber and, rubber and aggregate, they kind of look like a mulch and certainly don't add to the seasonal interest or, don't achieve a lot of the benefits that native plants do.
Do they also get very hot? There's been a lot of research that I've been reading lately about those rubber playscape surfaces, and they get incredibly hot, and it gets to a point where it's very unsafe for children to even play on them. So it's like almost counterproductive to their purpose. I understand this would be hopefully shaded most of the time, but have you read anything about that product and how it could impact the tree by being hot?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much in terms of specific research, and I think I had that conversation with Alan when we talked last year about this, and the place surfacing for sure, that's a big topic, and color you can control some things with with color a little bit. But it's definitely, the rubber does get hot. So I imagine that not having rubber would be better for trees. But I think that there are also those trade-offs with maintenance and, you know, usability.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see the appeal, especially in an area where, you know, people might need to walk on it if the sidewalk or the travel way is narrow. In general, I prefer a mulch or the native plantings.
Mhm.
And then you know, like the suspended paver tree pit, is that like the Silvacell?
The suspended paver is could be used in conjunction with Silvacell, but it's different. And there's some products. One's called Paver Grate, and it's essentially it combines pavers with the functionality of a metal tree grate. So it's essentially a metal tree grate with pavers on top. And the real benefits there is that it provides water and air to the tree. It provides a bigger soil area without compaction, but also provides kind of a more continuous paved area for people to walk on and move about, and also reduces trash, which, you know, the tree grates can collect stuff in them that makes them can be challenging for maintenance. So they're similar. They're slightly more cost than the tree grate because it's sort of like you take the tree grate, a cheap tree grate, but that's very structurally sound, and then put pavers on top. So, but they ultimately are on par in cost with the tree grates, but are paved.
Okay.
I will just say in favor of the mulch and the rubber tree pits. I don't think it could be done as much with native planting. One thing to consider is that it can be like sprayed over with vinegar for weed control. We found that worked really, really well this summer.
All right. We should probably get moving on to the rest of our agenda. Any other comments for Nate? Nate, do you have anything else?
Well, thanks so much for your feedback. I mean, I think that if you are, you know, keep discussing or, you know, have any more thoughts about it, definitely reach out to me. Alan has my email. I would love to have your thoughts and feedback. If you'd like to review, you know, the draft tree list or any other things that are part of it, I'm happy to reach out to you and would love any information that you want to give me. So,
Would it be possible to send us this PowerPoint?
yes.
I'm just realizing there's like a 15 minute section of no notes taken. So I could just get them from your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Sure.
Nate,
that
I
would
had a
be
question
for
for
all of
you.
us to look at.
Nate, would you like the committee to send an official, you know, memo
Yeah.
on the committee's, you know, likes and dislikes and things like that? Or
I mean, that would be amazing. It's optional. You know, I wanted to make sure I got your input, so it's up to you. But, you know, the more information, the better, and especially official things, that'd be easier to reference into, you know, reports for this. And, you know, if you have an official position that you'd like to give, you know, I'm happy to receive, but it's not required.
right?
Yeah, I would think it'd be great for us to do some sort of statement from the tree committee for this. Well, two things. One, can we see the whole report somewhere of the draft that you have?
Yeah, the town has it.
Okay.
I'll ask I'll ask the other folks at our office and the folks we're working with at the town about that process of handoff, or whether you talk to them or I've talked to us, but it's out there. It is, you know, again, very much a draft, so we didn't really want to publish it widely because it has some very much placeholder elements, but
No,
I think
I
so.
understand. But
Yeah.
in order to really be thinking more about the, you know, we don't need
Yeah.
to know the draft of every part of it,
Yep.
but anything
Definitely.
referring to trees and
Yep.
treescape, yeah.
So I'll ask and I'll see.
Okay.
And yep. And timeline, this project is supposed to be over at the end of this year, the end of 2025.
Okay.
So there's still some time. We're about, once we get a vision finalized, which we haven't quite done yet, then we're gonna be turning around to present that draft vision to boards and committees soon. And then there'll be a process to steer the ship towards a final set of standards. So.
All right, great. I think we'll talk about it at our next meeting as one of our agenda items, try to come up with, maybe do some research before that next meeting, but thank you very much.
Okay, great.
And Nate, before you go, just to clarify for the tree committee's official statement, you're specifically looking for input on tree soil volume regulations and tree surrounds?
Yes.
Okay.
And anything, other things are great too. If you have any other thoughts about tree, species or other issues, feel free to tell us. But, that's, I think, a place where you would be really, really good and really well positioned to support the soil volume and tree surrounds.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Put it here on your
All right.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. It's already 6:19. Can we go till 7 or
You want to?
that work? Okay. So I have a couple things I'll do. Let me grab the agenda real quick. Okay. No, can't find it. There we go. Oh, actually, how about before we do that, let me see. That's not going to work right away. Do we approve the minutes?
Yes.
I approve them.
All right, so minutes are approved. That's good. I'm trying to figure out how to share this, but there we go. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Good. I've lost my Zoom screen though. Nope. Okay, so approval minutes, so the committee's report. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm it's messed up my screen here. There we go. Okay, so one thing is Britt is on the library website as the author of that book. I meant to have Bennett put it in the newsletter that went out, but I forgot that. But if you look at the local artists, local writers on the Jones Library webpage, there's a little blurb about Britt. One other question I have, Alan, oh, no, it was for Bennett. Is the Arbor Pro thing on the website? Has anyone seen it there? I know it's
Yes.
public, but is it?
I checked it and it opens up for me at least.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be on our website for people to access. I don't think that happened yet. So I'll contact Bennett about that. I heard from the Brownie troupe that joined us a year or two ago, and they want to come maybe to the April planting. And then I also heard from Alpha Phi Omega fraternity or sorority, whichever it is. They want to join us at some point too. So I'll keep in touch with them. Let's see. Oh, in Granby, Dufresne Park, there was an article in the paper about the planning to cut down all the hemlock trees in the park. I wanted to ask Alan about that. Here's the oops. There we go. So they're worried about hemlock woolly adelgid, but it seems to me that they're just doing a massive amount of tree cutting. So, Alan, do you know about it or have thoughts about it?
I don't know the specific, I don't know what's going on there. I have not, I heard a headline about it, but I didn't, I don't know any details on why they're doing it. If there's another management plan going on, if they're clear cutting everything or just taking out weak trees. I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, generally speaking, hemlocks have been dealing with the adelgid to some extent, if they're healthy and in a good environment and good location. We have been lucky enough to have cold snaps, which knock the population back occasionally. So, but again, I don't know the specifics on why they chose what they're doing there. So,
Okay. The article, it's hard to read, but it seemed like they were taking a lot of stuff down preventatively, which I get concerned about, but yeah. All right. I have an idea of the community development block grants. We got an email about that. I got an email about that. I'm wondering if that's something we could fund trees with at some point. Does anyone know about that? No?
I got the same email, but I don't know if it can go towards trees. It can go towards recreation areas, so I guess it could go towards trees in recreation areas, but I don't know if it can go towards trees specifically.
Well, if somebody would like to research that and find out if there's, something that might be appropriate for us, that would be good to look into.
This is the community block grants? Is that what you said?
Community development block grants, yeah.
CDBG, I can look into it if you want. Happy to do that.
Oh, great, good. And that's about all I have on my thing. Julian, do you have more to add?
Sure. I was going to say something about those CDBG grants. The other thing I was going to say
Okay.
is that we're working, me, Henry, and Britt, to do a presentation this coming Friday for
This is Friday,
an
right?
eco conference. My only question was, did Britt send you any slides, Henry? I haven't gotten any slides yet.
Didn't send me anything yet.
Okay. But yeah, we're doing that. It's this Friday at 1:30. And I'm looking forward to it. If anyone from the committee is interested, you're welcome to join us. And I believe that's all.
That's at UMass?
Yep.
Yeah. It's the UMass Envirothon or something like that.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Sarah, are you here? Yes, you are.
Yep, the account balance is $11,887.35, which is no change. I did fill out the vendor form for $490. We approved $500 at our last meeting to purchase the Arbor Day seedlings. The total was $10 less. I filled out the form, and Henry, I have sent you another draft to see if this file works. So as soon as we both get a signed copy, we'll send it off. And Alan's already bought them, so we have the seedlings, but we'll just reimburse Alan.
Okay, great. That's great. All right. Alan, tree wardens report.
so I have apparently in the shuffle of the town council changing their administrative assistant last spring, the Arbor Day proclamation for 2024 was never read or signed. So we're looking into what we could do to try to have that retroly approved and signed by the town council. If it's not, if we can't do that, then we're not going to get our Tree City USA award this year. So
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to impact the grant we just applied for with TD Bank North. So or TD Bank. So that was interesting. But we do need to put together a document, a memo describing the Arbor Day proclamation, Arbor Day activities for this April. So that when we give it to the town council to approve, they can talk about the Arbor Day activities that we have going. So.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. I don't have much else.
All right, thanks. Social media updates, Julian and Shoshana?
Yeah, I was able to do the dashboard on Instagram so I can see how many views we get each month. So we got about 100 views last month, like page views on the Instagram. And it generally fluctuates between like 90 and 120 or 130. So that's something interesting to note. Other than that, I don't have many updates. I'll start making posts for April, so next month, for our first planting of the year, and obviously for Arbor Day. And I believe that's all.
Okay, and the Sustainability Festival too.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
Shoshana, are you here? No, okay. All right, let's see what's
So
else on the.
I'm here.
oh,
I was just muted.
okay.
Yeah, I've been posting stuff on our social media. Like I posted about Britt's book and about our meetings and current events that are happening that are like tree interest. And also about the Cup of Joe that happened uh like I think it was at Valentine's Day even, where Alan met with Paul Bockelman, and people showed up, and it was a good thing. And let's see, I also posted about the fact that we're in a drought right now. Like we've been upgraded to a drought. Last month, the report was that we were in like not as much of a concern as like Eastern Mass, but now Western Mass is also considered in extreme drought right now.
All right, thanks. Next to presentations and discussions, second Saturday work days. So we're going to do the town common and maybe the wildflower garden, right?
Yes.
Are you set for us to do that?
With a contractor, we are relying on the contractor who owes us the plant material that died to make that happen. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. So,
Okay. Well, we have a month till then, so
yeah.
I think the date is April 12th. And we should, at some point, we need to get a list of who's going to show up when for the Sustainability Festival and get the table and all the stuff we need for that. Who brought the canopy last year? Somebody had one. Oh, Britt, maybe. I'll check in with her about that. Okay, anything else about planting and that stuff? No? All right, the town tree inventory, I'll check with Bennett about that. Let me write myself a note for these things. Great. Okay. The Massachusetts Environthon, Julian talked about. Arbor Day Sustainability Festival. I think since it's late, we'll postpone talking more about that. And then there's the Bee City Town Hall Garden, but that's Britt. And the Merry Maple Table. Who was working on that? Was that you, Ellen? Or was that Britt?
Britt was going to write a letter to see if we could have it at the town hall.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I talked to people at the town hall repeatedly about it, and they kept on just like being like, yeah, we'll think about it. And then, so I think like the town hall is just not a viable option. They're not, like, they haven't said no, but they're like very, very hesitant about saying yes. And they're not, they're just being evasive a little bit. So like, I don't know even if it's on purpose or anything. It's just like, it's not rating on their radar is like something that needs to be addressed. So
I can add to that if you want. I did reach out to Angela Mills, the town manager's assistant, and she does have an opportunity in between displays to put stuff up. And I connected her up with Britt, and I don't know if they connected after that. So we're hanging it in the town hall.
I'll keep it on the agenda for future months, but when people don't show up, it's hard. We got a lot of things. And then the website update, that's Bennett, and so he's not here. State level initiatives, the municipal reforestation bill. It looks like that's getting active again. Has everyone seen what's come out recently? Did I send it around or it came around somewhere? That's a statewide thing that I think there's another push to try to get that to happen. So we should maybe write something or contact people. I'll look into it and I'll send something around about it.
Henry, about that, part of the ask on what went around was that we contact the town manager, because the town managers have
Right.
authority to weigh in. We individuals don't necessarily on at least one part of that initiative. So it would be good if we contacted Paul Bockelman individually or as the committee and said, you should be supporting this.
It's a good idea. I'll reach out to him.
Great.
I'll read the letter again. This was a while ago, so it's not clear on it. All right, significant tree ordinance, nothing, I assume?
No update, but I haven't forgotten about it.
No, okay, just no worry. Anything else that we need to talk about?
I have something.
Yes.
I've been working on the idea of the Tree of the Month Club.
Oh, thank you. That
And-
was, yeah.
Yeah, and so I have a list, but I have some questions and I don't know if other people have ideas. I think my term is up in June, so I'm trying to get everything written before that, and so that you just have it to post whenever. Hold on, I have so many things open here. Okay. So obviously we have two excellent examples of American sycamore. So either the Stronghouse one or the ones at Amherst College. There's also remarkable white oaks around. I think the best ones I've seen are the one on the and have the most content I could write about as the one on the Emily Dickinson property. There's also one on Mill Lane next to the waterfall by Puffers.
Yeah.
Appears in many older publications. Alan suggested the two Dawn Redwoods on Woodside Avenue, which I think are perfect. There's the American Elm at 111 Sunset that has a lot of history on it. It's crazy looking, and I think it's considered a public tree because it is quite close to the sidewalk, even though it's on somebody's front lawn. I was thinking for a maple, either the maple at Mount Pollux. I don't know what kind of maple that is, Alan, if you know. Everybody just refers to it to a maple tree. There's also that beautiful maple tree in the West Cemetery. And I don't know, again, if these are two different trees or not. I try not to repeat any tree.
Do you
Yeah,
mind
the,
if I
There's
test?
also,
Sorry, do you mind if I test my tree knowledge here, Alan?
Go for it.
That is an Acer saccharum or saccharium, which is a sugar maple on the top of Mount Pollux.
Okay.
yeah,
Well done.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Alan, do you know what that maple tree is in West Cemetery? I can probably find it.
That
Eventually.
the tree that's up front as you drive in through the main gate, you're looking
Yeah.
right at it. Yeah, that's a red maple.
That's a red maple.
Acer rubrum. And just to the left of that is a cherry tree, and that's the also amazingly old Sergeant cherry.
I
It
have
has
that.
a lot of connection to UMass and some of the first trees. Maybe
Yes.
one of the first cherry trees, Sergeant cherries in the area. So
I went and looked at it. I walked around the cemetery today, so I found it, and yeah, it's a descendant of the original seeds from 1877 from Japan. it was that particular tree was planted in 1973
Oh, 73, okay.
in the cemetery, but it is from the original
Okay.
seeds. Are
There-
the along Kellogg Avenue, are those pin oaks?
Yes.
Okay.
There's
Um,
a couple of state
Buffer.
trees that are on UMass campus. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I'm trying like all the most amazing examples. I mean, I shouldn't say all. The majority of the most beautiful, excellent examples are all at UMass or on Amherst College campus. And I'm trying to, because of who we are, try to find more public trees and trying to mostly feature just shade trees, even though the Sargent's cherry is I guess, considered an ornamental tree. So, I mean, I think I have enough not to go on to I think we can talk about the college campuses and their arboretums and all the tours you can do there, but,
Yeah, but we do have 2 state champions there.
yes, with there's 14 actually state champion trees but they're all on UMass campus.
There's a
Um,
really nice white oak at North Cemetery, right on East Pleasant Street.
okay.
And it's in between the white picket fence and the road.
Oh, I wrote to you about that one. Okay, so that's a white oak too?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Ellen, have
not-
you been in touch with the Gazette or other places to get this published?
Oh, no, I'm just trying to figure out what trees there are first.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but I believe there are 2 very old European lindens at 171 Lincoln Avenue, a bride and groom. I think they're still standing. I went and looked at them and there's,
There are some
But-
really cool trees on that road.
yeah. So I would love to find a really great example of some other, like a tulip tree or a great beech tree. There's a great beech tree on Amherst campus, but more than one, but is there a Katsura somewhere?
There's a tulip poplar that's pretty large in the backyard of Fearing
Yes.
Street home. You got that?
30 Fearing Street, yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
One's like 2 inches from being a state champion.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
behind the home, but I did walk by it the other day and you can definitely see it because it towers over the house.
Yeah. We measured it, some years ago.
I'm a little hesitant just because I don't want people it's not that
Yeah,
that many people are gonna read this, but going into people's backyards or anything, but
Well, there's also the tulip poplar in front of Boltwood
Boltwood,
Tavern.
Yeah. it doesn't look great. It's
pretty sick.
there, but it's just been so chopped down. It's not a beautiful example, but it
Yeah,
does
well,
work.
and it has a fungal infection. There were mushrooms on it last year.
Yeah,
Mm.
I did see that, hold on, where is it? Wildwood Cemetery is doing a tree tour. Here it is. April 27th for Arbor Day. Dan Zomack is going to do a tree identification tour.
that's the day after the Sustainability Festival, right?
April 27th is a Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, I wonder if they would want to give us like a flyer or something to be able to talk about it at the
Yeah,
system.
I think we can cross promote it. The history of Wildwood is great, and I think there are some, and Alan, you would know better, but I think there are some really spectacular trees there.
Yes, they do have a lot of nice trees there. It's nice.
By the way, Ellen, I checked. You have another whole year on the committee, so
Oh, okay.
we're not getting rid of you.
All right, thank you. I still want to get these all just done, and I've been taking photographs because I think it might be kind of interesting to see photographs of them without leaves and then with leaves. Or in the spring, maybe I'll take some more when they're flowering and beautiful, and we
Great.
can, if these live on the website, then you can add one in the fall too. And, so it's just something to, but does anybody have, I was trying to think, is there a great tree on the commons that we could feature? Like the Norway maple that now gets decorated, that's a Norway maple, the little mini Mary maple?
Yes, that's a Norway.
Okay. And like, I was thinking like Groff Park or Wentworth Farm. Are there any, should I go walk around and is there anything that comes to mind for anybody?
And I know there's a hickory tree out, it's not on, it's on private property, but I think it's near a conservation trail. Out behind Barry Roberts' Muddy Brook Farm on West Street.
Okay.
There is a massive hickory tree in the midst of one of their fields. You can actually see it on
I'll look.
Google Maps. But
So that's Muddy Brook Farm, the horse
I think
farm?
that's what it is, across from Long Meadow Drive
Yep.
on West Street there,
Okay.
All right.
out in the field.
There's
Uh-huh.
a weird evergreen at Wentworth that's like, when you look at it, you feel like you're in California or something. It's unlike normal evergreens.
In Wentworth?
Yeah, and it's very tall, and maybe like a tamarack. I don't know. I'm not really good with that tree, but it is maybe I should just go and try and figure out overall what this crazy tree is.
I also live around there. It's near it. I think it is a tamarack tree. I've biked by it a few times, and it's very, very big. So
Yeah, it is really tall, and
Is it
I was-
is it near the entrance to Wentworth or farther in?
it's in between. Like if you go in like the main entrance, and then you go over that little like rough bridge.
Yep.
There's like an opening, and there's like a little pathway to a field to
On the right, yep.
and it's at that spot. It's like in between the field and like the pond area field, and it's very, very tall.
Okay, I'll go look at it. I bike in there, but I don't think it's ever caught my eye.
If it's a tamarack or a larch, it would have lost its needles. So,
For now, okay.
has anyone seen it this winter?
I've definitely been in there this winter, but I can't say as I like have made a mental note of whether it lost its needles or not.
Yeah.
I can go check.
Yeah, I'll go look. That's not too far from my house. And I took some photos of the dawn redwoods the other day. So because that's interesting about losing their needles. And they were like glowing. The light was so beautiful on them, and they just like glowed almost like golden or orangey. It was really nice. I'm just looking at all my photos I've been taking. Okay, well, I definitely have 12, so I think it'll be good. But when you're driving around or, thinking about places, again, I'd love to get more geographical region. Some of the best trees are right in town, but of course, but if there are others, we used to have more champion trees, but they're all dead and gone now that I can find.
Well, thank you for doing this, Ellen.
It's fun.
And when do we hear back from the grant, by the way?
Should hear by the end of this month. I can check in. Oh, we're almost halfway through the month. Yeah, I can, I'll check in next week. I'll put on my calendar just to see when they are.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Sorry, Ellen, I meant to have that on the agenda and I forgot.
That's okay.
Your tree of the month.
Just reading work for myself. All right, back to the
Yeah.
minutes.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Anything else that we need to talk about? All right. And we call this meeting to close, and thank you all. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
All right.
you.
thank you guys. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye.